Hey everyone, it's Denise Brown and welcome to A Soul Break. We connect for 30 minutes every month to get a break from whatever it is that's draining our soul. And today we're taking a break from the demands of the day because today is feeling very demanding for me. And if it's demanding for me, I know it's demanding for you. So let's think, who or what is making demands of you today? So you can write them down. You can mute yourself and say them out loud. You can think them. You might just have one person. You might have one project. You might have multiple people. You might have multiple projects. You might have multiple deadlines. Whatever you feel will help. Think through who or what is making demands of you today. Just take note. And I find it helpful if I name what it is that's draining me. And demands are draining. Sometimes I think people who are having a hard time meeting their own needs during the day see someone who can meet their own needs like you can, and then demand that of you for themselves. So even in a caregiving situation, it might not be your caree, but because you are so attuned to meeting needs of others, it's others in your life outside of your caregiving experience that see you so well meet others' needs who think, oh, she can do that for me too. And then they start making demands. So when you're already feeling exhausted from caregiving responsibilities and then just your own responsibilities, there could be someone in your life who wants you to manage their responsibilities too. And it's helpful to know who they are, because when you can name who they are, then you can know how to minimize time with them, limit your interactions, or even set a boundary with them. So what we like to do during our soul break is think about how can we give ourselves time away from whatever it is that's really exhausting and draining us. So for this period of time, we're really looking at how can we give ourselves time away from the demands of today. We also know that the demands change from day to day. So what is demanding of you today might be different tomorrow. So you can pay attention to the different demands based on day of the week, time of the day, relationship, situation, season. So there could be demands based on what month it is or what season it is that change throughout the year. So it's about giving yourself a break from the demands. So as I was thinking through, what is it that can give us a break? I thought, what will nourish us? So think through what nourishes you. So I wanted to create or put up an image that felt like, wow, those apples look good. And actually, after I put that image together in the slideshow, I went and ate an apple because it looked so good. And my apple was just as good as what these look like. So thinking through what can nourish you. It could be just taking 5 minutes for a glass of water and an apple. And that's what nourishes you. And during that 5 minutes, you're actually taking a break from meeting someone else's demands in order to take care of yourself. So what nourishes you? Whatever comes to mind, write it down. And nourishment is about intake. So it could be what you eat and what you drink, but it could be your environment, your conversation, your connection. So nourishment is around intake. What's the intake that allows you to feel nourished? Priya, I'm actually going to put you on the spot. So I'm curious what's coming to mind for you about nourishing.
Well, in the mornings, what nourishes me is meditation.
Oh,
It's quiet. I get up very early. It's still dark outside. And there's something about just sort of meeting the rhythm of that and meditating and being in peace and quiet. What nourishes me later in the day is going to the gym. It's a shift in rhythm. I've already kind of gone through the day, and this is sort of a natural inclination to the next step of the day. And I really enjoy it. And it's a very spiritual place for me too. So, two different types of like, I guess, pathways to sort of connecting to something bigger than me, leaning into that.
and I love that you have a routine for two very specific and different types of energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Knowing that your energy is different in the day. So it's a little bit of a slower start. And
Mhm.
then when you've ramped up a little bit, then you use exercise to kind of capture that energy at the end of the day.
Mhm. Yeah. I've been thinking a lot of about the question, like, where am I most needed? Um, and in terms of like the work that I do and things that I do, as your regular work day. And I've been thinking about that question for myself. What are you most needed? Like, where are you most needed for yourself in this moment to receive? And that's a question that I've been sitting with that I think often in like the caregiving world, we don't often think about. And so and that's been really helpful to be thinking about that.
I love good questions. I love good questions. Okay. So then the next question I was thinking about in terms of getting a break from our demands is what will calm you? When we have a lot of demands, I think the pressure just stays on us and then it creates a spin. I think we start to spin out of the moment, spin out of the day because the pressure just weighs so heavily on us. And so, what calms you? So, I tried to find a picture that had stillness and nature, but maybe a little place for us to be. So, there's a church between the trees and the back, right? I hope that's right. And then there's a little boat off the deck. And then obviously there's a little cabin. But it also looks like if we walked around the lake, we might find a path to walk up and through the mountains. So there's places for us to go to receive the calm of the water, of the environment, and of our day. And I also think it really talks to the calmness of silence. So in this photo, I don't hear anything, which I think is such a nice break from us for us. Demands make noise. Even if no one is talking to us, we still hear the noise of demands. It could be the to-do list that we're looking at. It could be the meeting that we're participating in where we're not actually saying anything, but people are delegating to us. It could be during a doctor's appointment with our caree where we're starting to see, oh my gosh, we need more. I need to do more. So demands are loud in our day, even when we're not talking. So to give ourselves this space of calm and this space of silence gives us a break from demands. We do another monthly session for respite in place, this idea that we can create a space in our home or our yard or our neighborhood that gives us a break. I think of our respite and play space as inspiration for quiet and stillness and solitude. And that gives us a break from the demands. So, Priya, what for you calms you?
Well, I have to say this picture is very calming for me. What I love is all the details that you just mentioned, but what's really calling out to me as well is the reflection in the water. There's something about the bigness of being able to, like, even like nature being able to see itself in each other. Just reminds me, sometimes in a world where we can get very sort of zoomed into all of the details and the demands, like you were saying, it's good to have a zoom out. And when I'm seeing this picture, it definitely is a great zoom out, and I tend to be a very visual person. So these sorts of things really help me and calm. I think another thing that actually helps is connecting with those that I'm close to in my life and having a conversation wherever it goes, talking about the deeper stuff and also talking about the lighter stuff that can kind of make us laugh.
Yeah. Gosh, I love that insight about the reflection
Mhm.
and that
Makes me
nature.
want to go there. I'd like to know where that is.
Right. And this insight that you have that nature reflects itself, which reminds us that we can be a reflection of others and others can be a reflection of us,
Yeah.
which ties us to others in our life, but also reminds us that we are energy that
Mhm.
others receive and others are energy that we receive. So what's our energy in the world?
Yeah.
And what energy do we want to receive in the world?
Yeah. Yeah,
I
absolutely.
I hadn't noticed the church in the back of the photo until I pulled it up on the slideshow, but I like that there is this idea too that you can go to a place for a spiritual connection too. Just a reminder that you're not alone in the universe, that you are surrounded by support, even invisible support. It's there for you. And there
Mhm.
actually is a space that you could go to connect to that spiritual energy.
Mhm. There's something also about the colors in this picture too that are very calming, the greenery. Um, yeah, just the stillness of the boat right there, not moving, the stillness of this, I think it's a cabin that's sort of there of the church, just sort of like allowing us and letting us know that it's available. I think that's what I feel the most from this picture. There are places of stillness that are available.
Yeah. And that we can pull ashore and tie up our boat and step off of it.
Mhm. Yeah. Thank you for finding this picture, Denise. This is beautiful.
I should mention that all the pictures that I use when we do a soul break are from a website called Pixabay, and it's public domain photos. And
Oh,
so,
great.
yeah, so this is a public domain photo. Someone who's an artist was kind enough to share his or her work with us. So the question that goes with this image is, what will calm me? And then for our third question, it's what will steady you? So there's a flow in this image, but it's not an overflow. There is some structure around how the water moves. And I like that to remind myself that there are steadying presence in my day that I can use that can keep my flow manageable. I don't have to overflow. I don't have to flood. I don't have to run out. I can manage the flow. So what do you see in this image, Priya?
It's interesting. I see a lot that brings a sense of like steadiness and calm. And yet we can't hear anything in the picture, but it's almost like I can hear the water. So there's something familiar about it. And I think that's what nature does, is that it offers us like some level of familiarity. Again, like I'm here, come seek me out. I'm close by. Um, but what keeps me steady, I think was the question, is purpose, connection, and community. Yeah. I think those things that don't always have to be so big. They sound like big words, but it's the accessibility to it is in how we define it. So even just today, speaking community with you, having this conversation, that will lift me up as the day goes on and keep me feeling good. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what else too I didn't notice about this image, but I see now are roots. So by the tree,
Oh, yeah.
there's roots. So when we think about what's our steady, it's also what roots us. I was actually thinking more about an anchor, but maybe it's both. What anchors us to keep that steady pace in our day, and what is the root that we use in our day where we stay nourished,
Hmm.
we stay calm, and that we have this steadying strategy.
Mhm. I think sometimes it's the balance, right? The balance of like the quiet that I know anchors me, and the balance of the connection with community in many different ways, whether it's through personal or work or just meeting somebody. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, and this is a pool of water, which really is a pool of water drops. So going to this idea of community, what can we create with a community?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So this community of water creates a sound of trickle, a flow of energy, nourishment for the environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it could go into many other different streams of water too.
Right. Yes.
So
So,
it's like the intermingling of so many different points.
right. So depending on where it goes, maybe it goes to an ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's how the ocean is sustained.
Yeah. Yeah. Another great image.
So the three questions that we just talked about were what will nourish you, what will calm you, and what will steady you. So then let's create a belief statement about our demands, because I think sometimes our demands seem to be what drives us, what leaves us speechless, what leaves us exhausted, what feels like we're powerless to. So we can think about our demands as something that we can put some controls around through a belief statement. So if we use our belief wheel, we can think through what is a belief statement around demands. So I could say something like, I believe the demands of work are important to balance out with opportunities for play. I could also say, I believe demands from my family become my priority in the evening or on weekends if I'm working full time, whatever it might be. I could also say, I believe I have the courage to manage my demands. I believe my dreams and my aspirations and my goals are worthy of a demand of my time. I could also say, I believe my values can consistently offset the pressure of my demands. What do you think, Priya?
Well, values is something that's definitely drawing me in, just given how I grew up and just that sort of sense of core values and what tends to align me to a lot of things. And so I believe that with the demands of whether it's health or dreams or work or play, whatever it might be, that as long as I believe that I align with my values, that it will all come into play. Well enough, maybe not great, but well enough. It's a process, it's a balance, but always connecting back to values, perspective, and understanding that those values change over a course of time. So it's like that alignment. I may have to put more time into one area versus another area. Yeah.
So
That's what's
this weekend I committed to decluttering, which I did. And as I was decluttering, I found a hat that a former business coach had given me, and it says it's all made up. Now, that is a perspective that's kind of common in life coach training, which I've always kind of railed against, especially in a caregiving situation. Like we didn't make up an illness. We're not making up that it's really hard. We're not making up how complex and complicated the systems are. So I've always kind of thought, well, I didn't make this up. But what I find interesting is I think we can actually use that with demands. So it could be, I believe demands are just made up. And so if we think about demands as something that are made up, then we can make up how we manage the demands, how we define the demands. So if it's important to someone else, we can give ourselves an opportunity to ask, how important is this to me? And then based on values, decide, okay, I know this is important to this particular relationship. And and I'm going to put a little bit of time into it, but I'm also going to decide, you know what? It's not a demand I need to take on.
Yeah, I agree. It's our perception of demands. What could feel like as a demand of the pressure that we're putting on ourselves may not be how that is intended. And our sort of perhaps ask or elevation of something to somebody else could land as a demand on them based off of their personal experience. And I think that's where a lot of sometimes tension can come through because of how people, like you were saying, are defining what a demand is, how they're perceiving what the experience is. So I guess being intentional about how we're digesting that and how we're also communicating it.
Yeah, because I think we can impose a deadline on ourselves, which is a demand, which actually might be completely made up. Like we need to complete something by a certain day. And then we decide, oh my gosh, why did I put so much pressure on myself? I could have taken 2 extra days to get this done. Or a demand that we might make of our life's timeline. I need to be in this spot in my career by this age. I need to have accomplished this by this age. Those are demands that we put on our life, which create pressure for ourselves to achieve a certain success level, for instance, by a certain time.
Yeah, it's how we're holding time, like how our relationship to time. And because I always think about like what makes a demand a demand? Like where does that come from? Where's the starting point of that? Yeah.
Yeah, so where is the starting point of a demand?
I don't know. It's a big question. I mean, I suppose we could all look into our past and say, where did we learn what a demand was? Where do we learn where expectations were? I think sometimes it can be like we're affected by, the outside world, society, and like what is expected. I think it's our internal expectations as well. And I also think sometimes we're not having the conversations with people that we need to be having to really understand like what is what. So I think those connection points really do play a role in us reestablishing and redetermining our perception on how we're digesting a demand, whether externally or internally.
I'm part of a group of colleagues. We are committed to supporting each other on LinkedIn, and that support is commenting on a LinkedIn post. So the group works in a particular way where a member of the group will send out an email to the entire group when they would like someone to like and comment on their post. But what can happen, depending on the day, like today, there could be 6 or 7 requests within a short period of time, let's say 30 minutes, and that feels very demanding. So this week, because I have other demands related to other projects, other partnerships, I said, I'm not going to worry about this week because I grew up in a situation where my dad was like, you got to get this done. And so whenever someone makes a request, I'm like, I got to get that done. My experience with demands is you do it right away. You don't let it sit. You take care of it. So anyway, this has been so freeing this week to say, I've never taken a week off from commenting or liking over a period of 18 months. So I have probably commented and liked on who knows how many. And I thought this is the week I'm just going to take a break from it. So when the request came in, I just moved it into a folder I call follow-up. And that gives me a choice about whether or not I follow up. And I thought, I'm not going to follow up. But it was nice to move it out of my inbox, decide this isn't the week that I'm going to take on these demands. I'm going to wish everybody well and success this week and know that they're all going to be okay if I don't like or comment. And it's been fabulous. So what day is it today? Thursday? Yes. So it was great.
Wow. That's great. And do you feel like this level of just like, oh, I've given myself like a pathway, an avenue to say that can actually happen and not everything comes down on me? Great.
Because I very much believe in give and take. So if I'm going to post a request for people to like and comment, it's important for me to feel like I've invested in others so that the request is coming from a good place. I'm not just going to take, I'm not just going to ask for likes and comments without being someone who likes and comments. So it was very important to me to like and comment when the request came through, because I thought, when I make the request, I want people to honor that request.
Yeah, and it sounds like it aligns also with like the values of being able to like
Yes.
give and take and sort of what you live by.
Yeah.
And sometimes those things have to shift ever so often because there's only so much time in the day. And then again, it goes, I guess, back to our relationship to time. Like, what are we going to receive today? And sometimes that's the question we have to sit with in a day. And it's hard because I think it can feel, I don't know, like this sort of like you're just focusing on yourself. And it's like, but yeah, that's important. Sometimes that's really important to be able to have that energy to go out and continue to do your best throughout the week.
Yeah.
Human beings, right? Instead of human doings.
And we know that there is a finite amount of time in our day, our week, our life.
Yeah.
So what's the best way to use that time?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I was a frazzled mess before we started today because of all the demands. Oh my gosh. But this helped me. So I hope it helped everybody else who's going to watch it.
Oh, yeah.
You,
This is
Priya.
great.
Yeah.
This is
So
great.
I'm just going to leave one last image with everybody, and that is what happens in springtime. The renewal of flowers, the new growth, the colors that are around us. So we can have a spring anytime. Nature picks a certain month to start spring, and we can spring anytime. So we can spring ourselves from the demands of the day, the demands of our expectations of our life, the demands that we put on ourselves, and spring out into better energy, better health, better well-being, and better perspectives and insights around what is it that we're valuing, and then how do our actions actually exemplify those values. I'm curious, Priya, what do you see in this photo?
I love the colors. You know, what occurred to me first was spring. And I was just thinking about I had a loss in my life. And I remember thinking, because we were in the middle of COVID and like, oh, we couldn't do it during like the fall time because of all of that. And we ended up doing it in the spring, celebrating that person in the spring. And there was something very symbolic about that. Like, it was actually the perfect time to celebrate this person because of the meaning of spring to them, of flowers, of blooming, the colors, the new beginnings, all of that. And so that was the first thought that came into my mind. And the sun that's shining on it, I can sort of feel like the sun's rays on it. So it brings a sense of rejuvenation to me. Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, and I love that insight around the celebration of life
Mhm.
and this idea that we can give ourselves a fresh beginning at any point,
Yes.
at any moment within our day, we can receive a fresh beginning.
I feel like we did that today, just now, over the last half hour,
Yes.
right? Right before the call, like, and then
Yeah,
how we're feeling now.
yeah, yeah,
What a great way to sort of close this. Yeah.
yeah. So just a reminder, we meet every month for 30 minutes for a soul break. And you can register to join us by going to our community, which is caringourway.com. And just look in the events section, scroll through to the month, and then look for the second Thursday. And that's when you can RSVP to join us. Okay, thanks, Priya, for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for watching. I'm Denise Brown. We can take a breath today.